With that, Nick Wright joining us live from New York. Host, first things first. Okay, so there's a lot of pushback on SGA. And I made this argument an hour ago, is that style matters in basketball. You know, baseball is about stats. NBA, to some degree, winning matters, but it's about style. And people forever defended really flawed players in Westbrook and Derrick Rose and John Wall and Stevie Francis. They were dynamic and fun. And because Jokic, or especially SGA, is not a lot of fun to watch, we hammer on him. But he is so consistently brilliant at what he does, using his length, three-pointers, 2 points, mid-range, free throws, that it's like, guys, and the other thing, Nick, is when he scores 40 and 30, it connects to wins. He's not a selfish player. It means they win. Yeah. Kobe could score 40 and the Lakers were a worse team. Are you in this sort of this kind of tunnel of criticism? I have not heard enough to know. I just see a pro, a refined pro. That's what I see.
Well, first of all, you break my heart. You go to Chicago, ride the train, don't have time to listen to my takes anymore. You get no idea where I stand on SGA. It's unbelievable. It's well established. But, so let me listen. I think both can be true, Colin. And I think he was the rightful MVP. I don't have a vote, but if I did, I would have given it to him. He won the MVP by a decent margin over a player a lot of people believe is one of the 15 greatest players ever, still in his prime. He almost won the MVP last year. He is getting the idea that SGA is not appreciated, I don't think is accurate. That can be true, while this can also be true. The falling on the ground like you were shot is unappealing. And I think that it is consistent throughout recent NBA history that the guys who we feel like not just sell contact, but invent fake contact to get a call, we recoil from that a bit. I think SGA is a brilliant player. I think SGA is clearly going to not only win his first championship this year, but win a Finals MVP this year. Last night, 49 and 10. That type of performance to, in my opinion, get over the last hurdle the Thunder really have to winning a championship was an all-time night. I can believe all of that while also believing he would be a slightly more popular player if he didn't 3 times a game fall over without anyone touching him, and another 2 or 3 times a game do the Harden hook a guy's arm and create the contact that way. It can be, and this is the last point I'll make on it, you don't get everything in life. And one of the things that SGA gets that other guys don't is some of these calls. So one of the things he sacrifices to get that might be universal approval rating, such as life. Like, people make their choices. He is a brilliant, brilliant player, and that team's going to win the championship.
I want to talk Ant for a second. I believe artists, most artists at their core, want to be heard and seen. You could be a painter, you could be a basketball player, you could be a talk show host. And that we're all selfish to some degree. But now we live in this world of collaboration and sharing and all getting along. And it's my knock on Jason Tatum. Stop being collaborative. Take the game over. And Ant last night's like, well, I didn't get a lot of shots. I don't want to hear that. You can't have 1 shot in the first quarter. Like, be selfish. Michael was selfish. Magic, Bird at times. Mikhail, watch me perform. Michael, Scotty, I'll take the shots. This idea, like Tatum and Ant are both more collaborative and great teammates. It hurts the team. I want you to be selfish at times. Is that a bad take?
Well, no, I don't think it's a bad take. Last night's game is odd, though, because they scored 126 points. They scored 40 in the fourth quarter. Their problem was not their offense. Their problem was they couldn't get a stop, and OKC's big three. The stat of the day for you, Colin, is this. The big three in Oklahoma City last night scored more points combined in a playoff game than KD, Russ, and Harden ever did. They scored 95. Like, that's why Minnesota lost. Now, so I understand what Ant is saying, But the obvious retort is, okay, that's fine. You can't take 2 shots in the first half of a must-win game. You just can't. And it's not as if it happened because he had 17 assists. Like, he was doing a good job making the right read, but we have seen at various times where he can get somewhat taken out of a game by a defensive scheme in a way that a guy who's a potential one-day MVP, you wish he wouldn't. With the obvious defensive ant at all times is he's 23. Like, this is the next step in his learning process. It is a bummer that it would appear in back-to-back years they, outplayed their seed. They had a pretty big upsets along the way to the conference finals, and then in back-to-back conference finals, Ant was not quite at his best, but he is still ahead of schedule for what he has individually and his team have accomplished at this point in his career.
Yeah, I said earlier, go back to the 80s. Michael played the Pistons, a great defensive team, and he had bad halves. Like, it's part of the maturation stage. So, we got into a discussion yesterday, is that I understand a New York star. I mean, if Aaron Judge played with the Royals, he would be great. We wouldn't talk about him. If Ohtani was with the Angels,
Bobby Witt Jr. erasure. I mean, I'm not going to allow you to do that. The future face of baseball, Bobby Baseball in Kansas City. But go ahead. Sorry, as you were.
I mean, Ohtani with the Dodgers is different, 10 miles up the road from Ohtani with the Angels. Sure. And so I understand Brunson is the best quarterback in New York, but we got into this thing yesterday where you can't now have Brunson on the court with Cat. It's a defensive problem, and he's very ball-centric, so you have to find the right players like a KD that can catch and shoot. And I said, if you're asking me tomorrow who I would start my franchise with, Brunson or Haliburton, Haliburton can play with anybody. He's effective when he's not scoring. He's a better defensive player. He can also shoot, but I could put him with any – I always felt this about, like, Klay Thompson. He would have fit on every team. KD like that. When LeBron's with your team, he is the ecosystem. Brunson's not LeBron. But as I watch Brunson, I think it's been a really good tell that Cat's not going to be the future and that KD fits better and that Haliburton has a brighter future because he works with every player. Everybody works with Haliburton. Brunson is player and style specific.
Okay, so that's there's a lot there. So I understand your point about that Haliburton can fit, play better with others, so to speak. I still don't think he's a better player than Jalen Brunson. And it's close, but I still think Jalen Brunson's ceiling and upside is higher. And you're right that Haliburton is a better defender. But Haliburton's not exactly locking anyone down. Like, Brunson is a minus defender, maybe a minus defender, and Haliburton is just a slightly minus defender. He's not doing a lot of the defensive work for Indiana. And Haliburton is a better distributor, but Brunson is a far better scorer. I don't put the Brunson Cat struggles at times when they're on the court together primarily on Jalen Brunson. I put it more on Cat, and I think Cat needs to be more assertive with the ball at times. I also think it is smart if Tom Thibodeau would stagger them a bit more than he does. And when Cat is out there without Brunson, he has to look at it as, these are my shots. This is my offense, and that doesn't necessarily just mean shooting threes, even though he's a great three-point shooter. My biggest disagreement with you is this. Like, if you're the New York Knicks, you cannot trade Karl Anthony Towns for Kevin Durant. Like,
right,
Kevin Durant,
right.
I understand your point that do I think, like, in a vacuum, that style of player would fit better with Jalen Brunson, a guy who's just catch and shoot and has already been in an offense where he is the epicenter, where he's not the epicenter, all that. I get that. But just because KD is going to be 38 and is not injury-wise reliable, I wouldn't do it. I also think people have written the Knicks obituary too early. I think the Knicks are going to win tonight, and I still think they are going to win this series. And I think that if that happens, we might look at it like, all right, the Pacers, obviously underrated by a lot of us throughout the year, back-to-back conference finalists, but we maybe got a little ahead of ourselves anointing them as the future of the Eastern Conference.
Okay, I said this yesterday. There's been a couple of sound bites where Aaron Rodgers said, I'm not going to play in Louisiana. I'm not going to be a Saint. Yeah. So where he plays matters, clearly. He's also been quoted saying, or a source close to him saying, I think he said it, I'd play for $10 million. So money's not the driving force. Yeah. So location matters, money doesn't. And then he recently said, he was at a kind of a Q&A that, I'd go back to Green Bay. Well, that means you don't even see yourself necessarily. You'd go back to family and not even be a starter. So all of it feels like, to me, he's an inch from retirement. That said, I don't count passer rating. Tua's, Garoppolo's is higher than Josh Allen, Manning, and Brady. Take passer rating out, it's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. Russell Wilson's is a mile higher than Kurt Warner and Brady and Manning and Big Ben and Josh Allen. It doesn't matter. Now Mahomes is great. It can matter, but it's not a defining trait. And I said, if Aaron retired today, he is my Dan Marino. What do I do? Basketball style, baseball stats, football's winning. Aaron's got one iconic playoff moment. I don't know if Marino has any. What do I do for a one appearance in the Super Bowl, 500 playoff guy? The MVPs matter some. Where do we classify Aaron all time in your opinion?
I think we'll agree on this. Outside of the top 5, inside the top 10.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Oh, you don't think he's top 10 all time?
No.
Wow.
I think he's out of it. I think Favre is like 9 to 10.
Okay, so then can we, this is kind of off the top of my head, but like, let's just go. Tell me, see, here are the guys I would clearly have ahead of Aaron, okay? Brady, Mahomes, Montana, Elway. I would have Marino ahead of Aaron.
Peyton Manning.
There's one obvious one. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not say Peyton? Yes. Yeah. Peyton, yes. I knew there was an obvious one I'm leaving. So there are my 6 I have ahead of him.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Terry Bradshaw. I mean, how many times do you have to win the Super Bowl? How about Aikman's got 3 Super Bowls? I mean, that has to matter more than regular season stuff.
Hold on. I love, but so this is I love Troy. Troy is not a better player than Aaron Rodgers. And Troy had, Troy was an excellent quarterback on an all-time team. I personally can't put Troy ahead of Aaron. I also, though, Terry to me is on that same tier. Like, let me ask you this, because this is, and I'm not Aaron's last 5 years, I think, have, left a lot of us wanting a lot on and off the field. But do you think Aaron versus Drew Brees, I feel like you have to put Aaron ahead of him?
I think
they both have, tell me.
Yeah, I think it's inches, but I would put Aaron ahead of Brees by an inch. But I don't put Brees as a top 10 guy because I think Mahomes has knocked several players out of it. I was always an Aaron guy over a Favre guy. I think he's a smarter player and he's more on schedule. But I think what happened to Aaron is once Brady, I've told you this before, when Brady and Manning started compiling trophies, Aaron got overly protective of his passer rating and became a safer player in big games. He started playing to protect his passer rating, and that to me started the downward trend in big games. If he had a pick, if he had 2, he just wouldn't make certain throws. And I think that's the last 7 to 8 years. Yeah.
I think that's totally fair. I think that's right. And I will give you credit that when you and I first got to know each other, you were making a similar point, and I thought you were crazy, and I've come around more to your side of things. I still think that Bradshaw, Staubach, Favre, Rodgers are all, to me, in that, of them, again, I'm not going to do Unitas and Baugh and those. I don't know how to do those. If we just basically go Bart Starr, since the merger, I think there are, to me, 6 guys I would clearly have ahead of Aaron, and then 5 or 6 guys he's right there with them. And the Marino part is tricky because you're right, he's got none of the winning, but the flip side to that is literally every person that covered the league in the 80s or played they all swear a blood oath that he's one of the greatest players anyone's ever seen. And so I feel like there is some of that same almost mythological aspect to Aaron, which is guys who played with him and against him talk about his talent in such an amazing way. I also would ask this before we move on. Would he firmly be looked at as top 10, or even if it's 10th, if he had simply retired after his last year in Green Bay?
No.
Is it everything that's happened the last couple of years, has that hurt him? I don't know. But you say no. Okay.
No, because I watched Michael Jordan play for the Wizards. I went to one of those games, maybe two, and it doesn't matter. And I think, I mean, Unitas ended up, I swear, on the West Coast. I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I think we take, I mean, I've said this before. Marlon Brando had like 6 legendary movies and 8 bombs. Tom Cruise was in Vanilla Sky and Rock of Ages. We look at your greatest work. I mean, Tom Cruise couldn't figure out he was just an action star until 6 years ago when he finally figured out this is what people like.
Shots
I run.
fired, Tom Cruise.
No, I love Tom Cruise,
Wow.
But I mean, when he finally came to terms with the more I run, the more people love me, the more stuff I do stunts, the more they love me. And he was always a good actor, but it was like it takes time to define what you are as an artist. And when he did, he was great. And I think I look at Aaron and Marino and I'm like, what are the moments? They don't have a lot of them.
Fair. No, that part's fair. Also, last point on this, I'm glad, good for you that you were able to watch those Jordan games with the Wizards, because the NBA's burned the film of it, so nobody else can watch them. That was like Wilt's 100-point game. You had to be there in the stadium that moment if you want to see anything about it.
By the way, one more question.
Yeah.
The Caitlin Clark stuff is amazing. I was talking to Danny Parkins about this, and there's all sorts of things that people are getting worked up over. But here is the one thing beyond that. Merchandise sales went up 500%. The valuation of the team, an awful team that had the #1 pick, went from $90 million to $340 million. I think her only comp is Tiger Woods. I don't even think Michael and LeBron match this. This is a sport we didn't watch, and now I find myself, I was hanging out with family this weekend, and a bunch of the college kids were there, and they're like, oh, if Caitlin Clark's on, that's what the frat's watching. Over everything. I don't even know. I mean, I think we're underselling her impact. What say you?
Well, listen, I mean, I guess it, depending on who you're talking to, if it's undersold, I think you're right that it is. Tiger Woods is the best comp in that it took a sport that was incredibly popular amongst a small segment of the population, and one person made it seemingly mainstream. And this is where I would encourage people who are big-time pre-Caitlin Clark WNBA fans or women's basketball fans to embrace this rather than push back against it. Do you know who the biggest beneficiaries of Tiger Woods were? Other golfers.
Right.
Ronnie Els and Sergio Garcia and Phil Mickelson and David Duval and these folks who became bigger celebrities and wealthier and more popular because there were more people coming to the party. I think, one of the biggest winners from Caitlin Clark is going to be A'ja Wilson, who is still the best player in the sport. I think Paige Beckers, who it could be a real rivalry with Caitlin Clark over the next decade, she's a winner from this. I know people have tried to force, and understandably so, Caitlin versus Angel. The problem is, right now, Angel is a very good defensive player and good rebounder. She is not a great player yet, and so Caitlin's real rivalry is going to be with the other great players. But it's going to be so good for everyone associated with the sport. And so it's going to be great for the defending champion, New York Liberty. And so there are a lot of complicated things surrounding the WNBA. This one is not one of them. Having a supernova celebrity be awesome at your sport and bringing more people to the party is good for everyone in the sport.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I remember Marco Mira was one of the first golfers that really befriended Tiger. And he's like, guys, this is really good. And it took Marco Mira, a veteran, smart guy, to say like, hey, guys, stop the pushback. I'm waiting for the WNBA star in the league to come out and just say, guys, ladies, what are we doing here? And it may take that because I think I can remember being a sportscaster and get complaints all the time. All you guys talk is Tiger. And I'm like, have you watched him? Do you see what's happening? He's like incredible. So I do think what could really be helpful for Caitlin is getting some peer and like an Asian Wilson level player. There's like 5 or 6 in the league that just say, guys, we're crazy here. We're all flying private now.
Well, and I think, listen, because Caitlin came out with some kind of off-the-court social commentary, I think after last year, that I think really, in a positive way, struck a chord with some of the veterans in the league. And I know A'ja Wilson did come out and say how much that mattered. I think it's tricky when it is, yes, it is a rising tide aspect, but then it is also but you're not yet better than me, and you're young. And so, like, I understand the competitive rivalries pieces of it, but it is great for the sport, and it's great for sports fans. Like, as I learned just from being at Indy this past week, the more cool events we have that are well-produced, that are championship level, that millions of people are into, the better it is for everyone. It's just more fun, and so I think it's all positive.
Nick Wright, first things first. Good seeing you, buddy.